Hello, this is Callum and welcome to a brand new video. Today we'll be reacting to Mr. Nightmare. Today, if you don't know what I'm on about and you've not seen the previous streams, I did live streams of reacting to this channel. And I did 8 of them this year, 1 last year, but I did 2 videos as well. But this is going to be my first long video, on this channel. Because obviously live streams are just live videos and I did like 2 30-minute videos. So that's pretty much it for the Mr. Nightmare. That's pretty much it, really. But yeah, I just want to react to this on video, and as you can tell from the video length, this is a long video. So I'm gonna react to this. I'm gonna go and watch some videos that he's made since the last video, and then we'll go we'll watch some older ones. Yeah, we'll go watch wedding stories first. Turn up a bit. I can't go on widescreen, so I'm sorry about that.
My wife and I got married in the Church of the Little Flower in Coral Gables, Florida in 2017. We invited all of our close friends and family, including the family that neither of us really liked, because that's just what you're supposed to do. My wife Allie has this estranged aunt Chelsea that no one in her family is really close with. She used to have serious drug problems. It spiraled her down a path that just led to a rift between her and the rest of the family.
Nobody liked her.
Well, Aunt Chelsea was invited to the wedding, and when she showed up, she surprisingly came with a date. But unsurprisingly, he didn't look like the kind of guy you want to bring home to mom and dad. Right from the first time I laid eyes on him, I knew he was different, not in a pleasant, quirky way. After the wedding ceremony, of course, came picture time. The 6 bridesmaids, 6 groomsmen, and my wife and I all went to this nice backyard section of the church campus to have pictures taken by the hired photographer. Some close family from both sides came along as well to watch, while most others went to the party hall. Aunt Chelsea and her date came to watch us take pictures as well. This was when I first got his name, Rob. The two of them were making everyone uncomfortable, like everyone in the bridal party would joke around and we'd genuinely laugh. Then either Chelsea or Rob would yell out these weird, inappropriate things. They just kept doing it to the point where they created awkward silences.
Awkward!
All of us were just internally cringing, dreading what weird things they'd say next. It got very awkward very quickly, let's just say that, to the point I wanted them to leave altogether. Anyway, we eventually finished with pictures. Then we migrated to Comber Hall, the party hall connected to the church, where food and drinks were being served. Being the groom, all the attention is on you at all times. You barely have a chance to sit down and gather your thoughts or even eat. Every second I had someone else coming up to congratulate me, and eventually that person was Rob. He shook my hand again, his breath terrible, and his arms scarred up. He wasn't wearing a long-sleeved shirt, rather a stained gray polo. He seemed like a filthy person all around. He started talking to me with this loud, almost demeaning tone. I did my best to just be polite, and eventually he walked back to Chelsea.
Yeah, that's the best thing you should do.
This was the last time I saw him that day. Eventually I saw Chelsea sitting by herself at the table, so I asked Allie where that Rob guy went. She had no idea either. After a while of Chelsea sitting by herself, Allie went up to her to ask her where her date was. Chelsea didn't know. She hadn't seen him in an hour. Chelsea also explained that they met in rehab, and that she had only gone out with him 4 times.
4 times?
Allie grew concerned with this man being here after hearing this. We asked our parents and some close family to look around for the man, to confirm if he was still there or not. There was some concerning news when one of my relatives said that some of the gifts in the room where the gifts were being stored were missing. We immediately attributed this to Rob, and had an employee ask over the microphone for everybody to keep an eye out for Rob. Chelsea wanted to call his cell, but she couldn't find her phone. This put a slight damper on things, but we didn't let it ruin our wedding day. Our parents called the police and dealt with them on the side, with the help of Chelsea giving information about Rob. After the wedding reception, a few close friends came back to our hotel room for a little after-party of sorts. Chelsea had texted Allie asking for our home address, because she had to drop off her gift that she forgot to give. Allie responded, and then our good time was interrupted by a distressing phone call from Chelsea's phone number. Allie turned off the music and put it on speakerphone. There was a male's breathing on the other end, like horror movie shit, like he was trying to creep us out. Allie kept asking where Chelsea was.
Where the hell are you?
Eventually, the person on the other end hung up.
Yeah, well, that
Allie
worked.
called her grandma, who was the only one close enough with Chelsea to know where she would be, and she confirmed that Chelsea was staying with her for the night. Chelsea got on the phone and said she lost her phone at the wedding, and she didn't know her Apple ID or password, therefore she couldn't even track it with Find My iPhone. Our best guess was that it was that Rob guy. We were now concerned
The
that he knew our
lobster.
address and that we weren't home. We were too drunk to go home, so we asked my dad to stay there for the night and watch the house. He gladly did so. And the next morning, we woke up to texts and missed calls from my dad. He said someone kept tapping on different windows to the house, as if to be messing with him. He called the police, but they didn't find anyone. That same day, we went to the police station to see what could be done about pursuing Rob, who we suspected was the one behind all of this. But without video cameras catching the thief in Comber Hall, and given that Chelsea's phone had been turned off or destroyed, there was little to nothing the police could do. Chelsea told us that she and Rob had gotten into a verbal argument, and that he blamed us for whatever she was saying. He thought we didn't like him, and in his words, we sabotaged him.
Correct.
This just further led us to believe he was responsible for that weird phone call and coming to our house in an attempt to scare or harass us. We never saw or heard from that Rob guy again, and we have only started to further distance ourselves from Chelsea after that.
But yeah, the only problem I had with that was, why would you invite some random guy to your wedding? And why would she bring a date? Surely they would have had a thing like saying you can bring whoever you like. They could like have like a restriction on like bringing people, because there was obviously at the wedding there'll be quite a lot of people there. So I didn't know how that was going to work out then, but you know, but yeah, that's a bit meh.
At
Oh my
Nurofen,
God's
we know
sake, I hate
demanding lives can
adverts,
cause
man.
headaches,
They annoy me so much.
but pain should.
I can't be arsed editing this out. To be honest.
I had a pretty low-key beach wedding, mostly just family and friends. My wife, who I'll just call Trisha, invited more people than me for sure. She even invited her ex-boyfriend Kyle.
What?
I didn't know exactly how I felt about that
Why?
at the time, but I acted accepting and fine with it because I knew they remained close friends.
Why would you invite him? Why would you invite your ex? You dumb. Bloody hell.
There were about 75 people at the wedding ceremony, including Kyle. I didn't pay it much mind the day of the wedding because it was such a big day and my mind was obviously racing. Kyle was friendly to me, but throughout the wedding reception, I noticed Kyle would constantly be talking to Trisha, and when he wasn't talking to her, he'd be looking in her general direction. I mean, Trisha and I were married now. It's not like he had any shot at all. So at the time, I started to think maybe I was just being a little too paranoid, even if it was slightly annoying. Kyle came alone to the wedding, though, which I thought was just a tad weird that he didn't bring a date.
Well,
My wife and I
Yeah,
stayed
the
in a
last time we
fancy
went,
waterfront hotel
you
that
either like
night,
cold.
and the next day we went back home. A couple people who didn't make the wedding came by the house to congratulate us and drop off gifts. Surprisingly, Kyle stopped by as well.
yeah,
Trisha and I had recently moved into a new house together, and Kyle claimed to have stopped by to check out our new place and to drop off his gift that he didn't get to give us yesterday. He handed us, well, Trisha specifically, an envelope and a little foot-long teddy bear holding a heart. On the heart was our initials, which I actually found to be a nice, thoughtful gift.
nah.
We gave Kyle a tour of the house and he stayed for a beer, but after that he said he'd better get going and congratulated us once more before leaving. Inside the envelope was a card containing $100. As
Hey.
nice as I thought the gifts were, I still believed he had some serious feelings for Trisha. I asked her to ease back on the friendship a bit. She couldn't see what I saw, though, apparently. She swore up and down that they were just very close friends and that there were no feelings left on either side. Trisha put the teddy bear next to some of the other gifts on our dressers. While my wife and I were in bed together having a romantic moment, I stopped her when I heard this weird
Jesus.
noise. I couldn't put my finger on what it was.
Spell the details, will you? Jesus. I didn't think this would happen. Yeah, there is. I forgot to say there is some language and stuff like what just happened in this video. So I recommend watching some content that fits your age, or like some other content, because out of all the content you're watching right now, you're watching me. Well, I presume so anyway. Well, if you're watching this video, then probably.
But it sounded like a small electrical component. I looked around for my phone and found it was on my nightstand. I chalked it up to being a vibration from a text notification. Like half an hour later, laying in bed with the light off, I once again brought up Kyle, asking if he'd texted her since the day before. She said he has, and I got a little annoyed. I repeated myself, saying I don't want her talking to him anymore. She got a little mad at me for accusing her of being interested in him at all. I assured her he was still interested in her. Why else would he stick around in his ex's life like this? She got back at me with her assurance that she doesn't view him romantically at all, that she's no longer attracted to him, and that she broke up with him for a reason. She followed this with she will ease back on her contact with him. I apologized for coming at her like that, and we went to sleep.
Well,
the next day, when I got home from work, Trisha exclaimed that Kyle randomly blocked her on Instagram, and when she texted him asking what's wrong, he replied, "What do you care? I heard the things you said." When she tried texting back asking what he was talking about, she saw that he blocked her number now too. I wondered if maybe she butt-dialed him on her phone while we had that conversation the previous night. But when she checked her call history, his name wasn't there. I wasn't angry though. Him blocking her meant I was right. He did still have feelings, and now he'd be gone. That night while in bed, we talked about it some more. Then I heard the little electronic vibrating sound again. I looked at the teddy bear on the dresser. Then I got up and went to pick it up.
Oh, it's the teddy bear, Winnie!
My heart dropped. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen and started to tear the bear open. Trisha realized it immediately too. The inside of the bear's head was a square electrical component wired to what was very obviously a camera behind the left eye, and a microphone box wired to the left ear.
Oh yeah, I see.
I can see some kind of Bluetooth.
I can see the difference in the eyes. Oh yeah, I'm being joined by Bill, my cat, in this video. Yeah, that's why I said I wasn't comfortable a second ago, because basically I'm sat at the edge of the sofa in my living room, and his bum's pressed up against my leg. And yeah, that's pretty much how the next few hours is going to go for me.
Device that would probably allow a phone to send and receive data. We went to the police that night with the teddy bear and filed a police report. We then hired a lawyer and pressed charges against Kyle for invasion of privacy, and the judge ruled in our favor and required Kyle to pay us $15,000 each. Trisha also got a restraining order against him, and that was the end of him in our lives. Though we still do sometimes worry that he may pay us an unexpected visit. If he was crazy enough to wire a teddy bear to spy on us and possibly watch us in bed together, who knows how far someone like that is capable of going.
That is weird. That is actually weird, I cannot lie. Stupid adverts, go away.
I live in a safe town, the kind of town that you can leave your car doors unlocked. Hell, you can usually get away with leaving the doors to your house unlocked.
Hey?
The crime...
If that was my neighborhood, I don't know why I'm saying neighborhood like I'm American, but I don't know how to say it anyway. In my town... Oops, sorry. Sorry, I just had a cup of tea just before I started. But in my hometown, that like we don't risk having the doors open, because every time, because I'm on my own, like I'm home alone like now, because why not? Because everyone's at work. I keep the doors shut because I'm not taking any chances of stuff like that. And why would you do? Seriously, why would you have your door unlocked? I don't care how safe your neighborhood is. I don't care how safe your neighborhood is, man. Keep it shut. Keep it locked and shut. So, and I feel like in this story, something's going to go wrong and someone's going to end up walking in this guy's house. Because you don't keep your fucking doors shut. I'll
crime rate is very low, and I live on a dead-end block. I had just gotten home from work around 8 p.m. after a 12-hour shift and was preparing a late dinner when the phone rang. The second I picked up, I heard the sound of the person on the other end hanging up. I don't know if this has any correlation with what's to come, but if it does, that's even more horrifying. On nights where I get home late, especially after 12-hour shifts, usually I'll just cook, eat, clean up, take a shower, then lay in bed watching TV for an hour before going to sleep. This was one of those nights. I was physically and mentally exhausted, which led me to making what I learned that night was a serious mistake. I was laying in bed watching The Sopranos for my third run. Sometimes I'll drift off to sleep with the TV still on when I'm just completely beat, and that's exactly what happened this night. I woke up to the TV still playing The Sopranos. I had slept through 2 episodes. I felt around the bed for the remote and turned it off. In the now freshly silent room, I was able to hear little creaks in the wood under the carpet. I felt adrenaline kick in as I looked across the dark room, and I felt I could vaguely see the shape of a very wide figure. As I aimed the remote at the TV to turn it back on to light up the room, before the TV was even on, I started choking on my own spit as I tried to say, "Please leave." The TV came back on, and the room lit up a tint of blue, revealing her.
Whoa!
This woman in a wedding dress, looking at me, with the veil covering her face.
Frick!
I tried to scream at first, but nothing came out of my mouth because I was just in pure shock.
Yo!
I sat up, pressed against the headboard of my bed, frozen. That's the best way I can describe what I was doing in that moment. The woman in the dress, whose face I could barely see, walked over to the bed, whispering, "Where is my groom?" over and over.
No way!
But each time she said it, she got louder. Her whisper quickly turned to a yell, and she grabbed the edge of my mattress and started shaking it. I screamed back at her to leave me alone. Then I got off the bed, pushed her, and ran to the bathroom across the hall and locked the door. She followed me, trying to open the door, banging on it and repeating the words, "Where's my groom?" I yelled at her I'm calling the cops, and luckily I had my cell phone on me.
Fam!
The woman was crying now on the other side of the door, still knocking and banging. The last thing I heard her say was, "I have to get to my wedding." I heard her stomp down my stairs, screaming and crying. Then I heard the front door slam shut. I was on the phone with 911, and I explained what just happened. I checked the living room, and she was gone. I stepped outside to see if I could see which way she ran, but she was out of sight.
Speedy
A
boy.
police officer showed up shortly, and I described her as some larger woman in a white wedding dress and veil. How she was screaming, "Where's my groom?" and "I have to get to my wedding." I couldn't help with the direction she ran to. It was either down the only direction the street goes, or the woods to the right. Because of my exhaustion after my 12-hour shift, I had forgotten to simply lock my door, something I honestly never even thought was a problem in my neighborhood. But this just goes to show that even the best of neighborhoods, you're not always safe from crazy people out there. I think this woman was off her rocker and belonged in a mental asylum, and I hope police or somebody found her roaming the streets that night and brought her somewhere to get her help.
Yeah. Okay, Instagram next, but just before...
With even more choice across dining out and takeaways, good things happen when you meerkat
I
your
like
meals.
adverts, but I hate adverts in general. But before... I don't get why... I really don't get that. I was about to say, just before like that woman turned up in the wedding dress, I did not know what it was on about putting the story in the wedding video. But it makes sense now. Like when I first watched this video, first watched the video, like when it first released, like probably like, because he uploads them like midnight, like hours when I'm asleep basically, so I watched them the next day. But I didn't get like what was on about by putting the woman in the video and putting that story in the video about the wedding stories until the woman came up, because it didn't make sense until then. But yeah, okay, so Instagram next. So I can't put it in widescreen unless I stop my recording, because I've already done a few recordings to this already. 3 true Instagram horror stories. Oh, of course it. Who cared about DMs, man? That's why I don't have Instagram. Not because anything like this happening, or it could. I don't know, but still.
I'm sure most of you use Instagram this day and age.
Nope.
Whether you have a big following or none at all, it's just something most of society uses. Apparently the app has over 1 billion active users, which I find insane.
1 billion?
I had about 300 followers at the time this happened.
It's not bad.
I live in a rural town, so I guess that's a lot for people around us. We don't know a lot of people outside of our districts. One night watching a movie, my phone vibrated. It said a girl named Holly started following me on Instagram. So I opened up Instagram to check out her profile. And she was this really gorgeous blonde girl with like 5,000 followers. She had about 50 pictures. They were all spaced out realistically as far as the dates they were posted. Usually when I get followers like this, I'll check to make sure they're actually legit. She got like 600 likes per picture and a bunch of comments from guys I assume she didn't even know, leaving hearts and drooling emojis and whatever. Then, I
Simps.
kid you not, as I was going through her page, before I even followed her back, she DM'd me. She said, "Hey, I honestly don't do this a lot, but I thought you're really cute."
Ooh.
To be honest, and not to sound like a douche, I am pretty fit, and I've been told I'm pretty attractive. And I have
Not to toot your own horn or anything, innit? You know, if I said that in a video or a story, I would have said, like, not to toot my own horn because, you know, it makes sense. And then, without saying that, it makes you, for me, it sounds like you're saying you're an egomaniac. Like, yeah, like what Sonic the Hedgehog is nowadays. Thanks, Sega.
I've had some girls DM me in the past. So I followed her back and DM'd her the same, saying I think you're cute too. Then we went on to have a pretty long conversation, but it was going really well. We talked about fitness and what high schools we went to, and honestly it was great. She gave me her number, and we quickly got to setting up a meetup for the next night, which was a Friday night. We agreed we'd meet at a popular bar called Lucky's for a couple drinks. So Friday night, as the nerves are starting to kick in, I prepare myself for this little date. Never had I gone on a date straight from an
Don't
Instagram
snore, Bill.
DM. But this girl
But I just have to pause it for a minute to say, I won't keep pausing it, but yeah, my PC mic sucks, and like, if you can't hear me, I'm sorry about that, but I'll put it in the description anyway, but it didn't really seem to be a problem in the Sonic.exe playthrough video, but yeah, like, yeah, my cat's joining me in the video, like I said earlier, but he snores, so if you hear any, like, you know, little noises in the background, it's him. Yeah, he's been in videos before. He's been, like, in my first, like, 4 months in YouTube, I made 3 videos showing him off and playing with him and stuff, so they were fun. But I don't know if I would do that again or not. Hey yo. And he joined me in the Stampede 1v World stream, like, not in this watching 700th, but like for a few minutes in the first video. But yeah, I'll get back to the story now.
was downright gorgeous. I drove down to Lucky's and sat in my car
I
in the
bet it's
parking
not real.
lot,
I bet she's not
awaiting
real.
her call or text to let me know she was there. Eventually she did text me, but not to let me know she was there. She said her car broke down and she needed a ride. I had to reread it a couple times to be sure I was reading it correctly. I tried calling her, but she didn't accept the call. She texted me describing her location. I didn't answer just yet. I took one more good look at her Instagram profile, and it was definitely real. She had friends tagged in her pictures, commenting on her pictures, so I knew I wasn't getting catfished. I texted back on my way, and off I went. I
That
drove down the
sucks.
quiet side roads towards the location she described. I made it, but it was a weird spot for her car to have broken down. I saw a car pulled off to the side of the road next to the woods. Actually, there were woods on either side of this road. The car had its hood open, so it had to be her.
I bet it's
I
like a
tried
man or
calling,
something.
but it didn't go through. I looked at my phone and realized I had no bars here. I parked my car on the other side of the road and got out. As I walked over to her car, which was a black Nissan Altima, I realized I couldn't see inside of it at all.
I bet it's
The
like
windows
a man
were
or
completely
something
tinted black. I lightly tapped on the window and waited.
there. But not.
No one opened the door, so I walked around to the front hood, just to see if she had attempted to do any work on the engine, I guess. As far as I could tell, she didn't. I was losing patience. I texted her, "Where are you? I'm about to leave." As I walked back to the side of the car, I noticed the driver's side window had now been cracked down. I knew for a fact they were all shut a minute ago. I called Holly's name, knowing someone had to be in the car now. I walked a little closer to get a look inside. Someone's fist reached out from the window, and they started signaling for me to come closer with their pointer finger.
Piss.
I felt my stomach drop, realizing it was definitely a man's hand. I told him in a shaky voice, "Get lost," as I ran back to my car.
I knew it. I knew it.
I sped away and made the first right turn off the street I could. Because of my constant glances in the rearview mirror, I eventually spotted a car with its lights off trailing behind me. I thought to do the same. I turned off the lights on my car and started making as many turns as possible, and eventually I did lose the car. When I got home, the profile had already blocked me, but I found out at a later date that that profile was in fact real, but that the girl in the pictures was hacked by some creepy dude, and I wasn't even this only guy's victim of whatever plan he had. I just hope everyone else was as fortunate as me.
I knew it had to be something dodgy. Because I couldn't tell, because with these stories, you could either get catfished or someone hacking the real account, like what this one was. But I didn't know if it was like going to be something completely different or it's going to be the same formula with all these dating creepypastas. I don't even know if I should call them creepypastas because he doesn't specify are they creepypastas or not. But I'm just going to say they are because I don't know what else to call them. Apart from horror stories, but why not? Story number 2. Oh, go away, stupid pop-up annotation crap. Can I turn that off?
I have an Instagram account with 1,100 followers.
It's off!
I had it set to public so anybody
Dumbass.
could come onto my page and look at my pictures, like them, and comment on them. So oftentimes I'd get people I didn't know liking my pictures and commenting on them. But one person stood out from the rest. I remember his first comment on one of my photos. It was a beach picture with one of my friends. So I was wearing a swimsuit. I had like 11 comments on it, but one of them was from somebody I didn't know. It was 3 flame emojis. I clicked the man's profile.
Oh, is that
He
one?
had 3 pictures, 80 followers, and he was following over 200 people, including me.
But yeah, that's
All
just
3 of his
sad.
pictures were of him, selfies, which didn't look right given that he looked like he was 40 or 50. I didn't mind though, it's expected to happen to a certain extent. However, after that photo, it started becoming a thing where the man would just comment on every new photo I posted. One comment just said hot. This one was a little creepier, honestly. But then 2 days later, after posting my next picture, the man didn't comment this time. Instead, he sent me a direct message. It said, "Hey, I just wanted to tell you that you're beautiful, even though I'm like 30 years older than you, LOL." I responded, "LOL, thanks," which I'm surprised I did. Most people would have probably ignored it.
You should have
He
done.
got back to me with, "I would kill to meet a girl like you." I replied 10 minutes later with thanks, hoping he wouldn't say anything else. But he got back to me with, "Maybe one day I'll meet you, ... LOL. I didn't reply to that one. I found everything about the guy creepy, but I didn't block him. I figured, why get rid of a free follow and likes? I hadn't heard from him until I posted a new photo.
Seriously, I would just block him. Fam. It doesn't matter if he's like giving you. You're not gonna get more likes and followers. I'm not. I may not get many subscribers or likes or views for that matter, but I'm not desperate. I just do them because I can't. Because I need I have a hobby. I have a hobby because I don't have much hobbies, to be honest.
This one of my sister Carol and I in front of our house. The man commented quickly on the photo, saying, "You and your sister are so cute." Now it was becoming too much for me, so I removed the comment and blocked him. Later in the day, Carol and I were home alone. I was in the bathroom doing my nails, getting ready to go out. I noticed a car I didn't recognize pull up in front of the house through the window. But only the front. The rest of the car was covered by the bush that separates our front yard from the neighbor's. The headlights shut off, but I didn't see anyone step out of the car. I took note of this only because we're on a dead-end block, so we don't get any through traffic. I shut the blind just because I was on full display. My sister was in her room on her laptop when the time came for me to leave. I didn't bother saying goodbye. Usually
Wow.
we just text each other that we're going out anyway.
Such a dick move that is.
I went to my car, looking at the mysterious car, which revealed to be a Maxima. The tinted windows mixed with the darkness of the night
That's
made
gonna
it
be the same
impossible
guy,
to
innit?
see
It's gonna be the
inside
same
of it.
guy. I know how this is gonna work.
I got in my car, did a 3-point turn, and drove down the one-sided street to the nearest main road. I went to a social gathering at a friend's house. I wouldn't call it a party, but a decent amount of drinking went on. I cut myself off a little early since I knew I had to drive. But still, I'll admit, and I don't condone this kind of behavior whatsoever, I was pretty tipsy when I was driving home. It was only a 5-minute drive though. I pulled up to my house, and the first thing I noticed was the Maxima still parked out front. I needed to know whose car was that. I passed it slowly, but still couldn't see inside of it. I parked and texted a few friends that I got home safe before stepping outside and walking up to my house. I was eyeing that car parked out front all the way up to the front door, where I dropped my keys, at which point, for whatever reason, I was too scared to bend over and look for them. Instead, I rang the doorbell like 5 times so my sister would answer quickly. She never answered the door though, so I was forced to get on my knees and look for the keys. They actually landed right on the doormat. I opened the door and went inside pretty swiftly, taking one last look at the Maxima before shutting the door. It was past midnight, but my sister was usually still up this late, so I dizzily but quietly walked up the stairs and down the hall towards her door. And oddly enough, it was wide open, but the lights were out.
There you go.
Maybe she went out for once. I crept into the room,
For once.
and my heart skipped a beat as my mind tried to put together the faint noise I was hearing. It took me a while to realize it was a whisper. The whisper of my sister, who was coming from the closet. The closet was cracked open, and I saw my sister peeping her eyes through the crack. She was visibly shaken and appeared
What the hell are you playing at in the closet, man? You plonker.
to be crying. I knelt down next to her and opened the closet all the way, whispering, "What's going on?" She didn't say anything though. She just kept putting her finger on her lips, telling me to be quiet. I tugged at her arm to pull her out of the closet, and when she was out, I pushed the closet shut quietly. This revealed my sister's room again, as well as somebody clear as day standing direct center in my sister's room. I don't know if he was facing us or not, but that didn't
Of course
matter
he is.
because we both wailed as we ran together. I felt the vibrations of the man stomping close behind us. We went straight for the car. I was able to lock the doors without even a second to spare before the man chasing us tried the door handle. When he realized it was locked, he started bashing at the window with his shoulder, all while my sister was screaming and wailing, making the matter worse. Through the intensity of the situation, I still was able to make the connection. It was the same man who had been stalking me on Instagram.
Of course he was.
I had to do a 3-point turn, but all the while I was honking the horn to get as much attention as possible from the neighbors. I think it worked because he got into his car, which turned out to be the Maxima, and did a 3-point turn as well. At first we thought he was tailing us, but instead he booked it past us and down another street to never be seen again. At that point, we just turned around and went back to the house. I called our parents and then the police. The police were able to find out how the man broke in, through an upstairs window. He climbed up a ladder onto the awning and boosted himself up to the windowsill. I told the police about how he was stalking me on Instagram and must have somehow found my address when I posted my most recent picture with my sister, which included my house number. I tried to help them by giving the man's Instagram account, but when I went to the blocked accounts section, it was empty. That meant that the man already deleted his Instagram. Therefore, even if there is a way for Instagram to track deleted users, it didn't matter because I didn't remember the man's username. So I hate to say it, but there was nothing the police could do, and I knew it. I've since set my Instagram to private and really only accept follow requests from people I know now. I'm also a lot more paranoid and wary of posting revealing photos.
You shouldn't even done that, to be honest, to begin with, should you? Like, I'm a weird channel. Yeah, I'm the first one to admit. I post all kind of crap. But I don't really reveal personal information about myself, apart from, like, in my Big World video, I revealed something about myself. If you want to know what that was, go check out episode 106, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Because I actually revealed something about myself that I've not talked about once on my channel. I've not even talked about it afterwards. I just kept everything on as normal. So yeah. But yeah, I don't reveal personal crap about myself, to be honest. Stupid ad. I hate these annotations. They're supposed to be off. Man.
I came across something recently that has been freaking me the hell out. Before I get into my discovery, let me just get into a little backstory that makes the discovery even more disturbing. For the past few weeks or so, on several occasions, while either trying to sleep in my bed or doing something in my room with a light on at night, I would hear a single, faint yet audible tap on my window. I hardly want to call it a tap, because none of the sounds really resembled an intentional tap. It sounded more so like something accidentally being scraped or pressed against the glass very briefly. At first I thought it was just bugs flying into the window, but as the same sound kept happening at least 2 or 3 times a week, I started to get freaked out by it. So I told my dad, and he of course told me it's nothing, probably just bugs like I initially thought. So nothing happened for a few nights. But then, I got a text from a friend. Well, not a friend, just some guy I used to have a class with who somehow coerced me into giving him my number. He said, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me. We used to have a class together. I just wanted to let you know about this. I stumbled upon it by accident, and if you're unaware of it, that's pretty disturbing." Then he added a link to the bottom of the message. I pressed it, and it took me to an Instagram page. The page was titled JP Unofficial. Those were my initials, but that wasn't the first thing I noticed. The first thing I noticed was the profile picture, which was me. And then, the 45 pictures uploaded to that account were all of me.
Hey,
They weren't like pictures that I took though, they were all candid.
What the hell, man? Why would you do that? And 2, why would you even text her that? You are so dumb.
I mean, like, they were pictures I never even knew were taken. Some were of me at the beach, some were of me sitting in my car, but the newer ones got even weirder. Some were of me in my backyard, and then the worst ones were the most recent. There were pictures of me in my room, taken from outside my window.
That's the wit.
Some of me sitting on my bed doing homework or texting, others of me standing, with one even of me in my underwear. I felt sick.
The frick? I did not see that coming at all. Oh my god. I didn't even see that coming.
I felt like crying and throwing up. All of the pictures had at least 2 or 3 likes. Some had comments, but not comments pointing out how wrong this is. They were comments encouraging it, saying things like, "Go for it," or "hot," or "what I'd do if I could get my hands on her." The captions on the photos too. They were all things like "the love of my life," or "she went to the beach today," or "I just like to watch her."
What the
My mouth was twitching as a tear rolled down my face.
Why would you openly admit that? You stupid.
I was so disturbed, I can't even describe the emotions I was feeling.
Are you stupid in the head?
And then, there was a sound again at the window. The sound. The unintentional scrape or tap. And then it clicked. It made sense now.
It's the geezer.
When I put 2 and 2 together, I simply snapped. I lost it and screamed louder than I'd ever screamed before. My dad came rushing in with open arms to hug me and ask what's wrong. I showed him the Instagram page and explained the taps at the window. Well, explained is a stretch. I was a mess and could barely speak clearly. My dad's expression went from gentle to horrified to downright angry.
Oh,
He rushed outside screaming,
Triggered.
making a scene for the neighbors, looking for the stalker. He then came inside and called the police. I gave the police the Instagram account and requested they track it as soon as possible. Law enforcement put the request into Instagram. By the time it was received, the account was deleted, but it didn't matter because Instagram was still able to recover the info, and the usage was traced to an old iPod Touch. Unfortunately, the device was untraceable. It was either destroyed or it had its Wi-Fi turned off permanently. My dad saw how messed up I was, and he plans on moving us out of the house within the month. Luckily, there haven't been any new sounds, but I've also made sure to keep all my blinds shut 24/7 and always make sure I'm not being tailed while driving. All I could think to say to everybody is keep your Instagram private and always be alert to your surroundings.
I was amazed at the whole story because I did not get. I got what was happening, but it was odd. Why would he openly admit that? Is he thick in the brain? Is this guy thick in the brain? Why would you openly admit that? You retard. Okay, so the next one will be the second. Well, I don't know if this is the second. It's either that one or that one. I don't know. Eeny, meeny, miny, moe, gonna do, eeny, meeny, miny, moe. Okay, Snapchat then. Well, obviously, let's get some virality in here.
This was not even a month ago, so all the small details are still fresh in my mind. I've been using dating apps on and off for years. I think Tinder sucks along with its customer service, and I was never a fan of Hinge or OkCupid. I mainly use Bumble.
Bumble?
In my Bumble bio, I have my height,
Bumble?
which is 4'11". I make a joke about being short.
Let me Google.
And then I have my...
Let me Google what's Bumble. What's Bumble? I can't spell. No, not on Bubble, you retard. Bumble. Oh, it's a dating site. Oh, I'm such a retard.
Instagram and Snap at the bottom. Because of that, I get a decent amount of random follow requests on Instagram. Half the time I don't follow them back. I also get a lot of random people adding me on Snap, probably more on there than on Instagram. I usually only add them back if I recognize their name from a recent conversation on Bumble, or if their Bitmoji looks pretty normal. I know, that sounds weird. I deal with a lot of stupid, disgusting boys on Bumble, but it's not as bad as Tinder. Still, I'll often have the typical douche frat boy asking if I do hookups or sending any kind of provocative messages. Usually when that happens, I'll mess with them a little bit and then unmatch them. This one time, I guess 3, almost 4 weeks ago, I matched this actually pretty attractive guy. He sent some pickup line that was kind of creative and got my attention. Pretty soon he asked for my Snap. Then seconds later he added me after noticing I had my Snap in my bio anyway. So I added him back because why not? He started messaging me on Snap. I screenshotted the first 2 pics on his Bumble profile and sent it to my girlfriends, mentioning how attractive he is. My friend Gianna replied right away saying it's a catfish. She matched it too. So I decided I'd mess with them a little bit.
How to break someone's spirit, Jesus Christ.
The things he was messaging me on Snap were slowly progressing to be more sexual. So I started saying the most unattractive things possible, and they started getting noticeably salty. I said I would be down to come over if they sent me a selfie. He didn't send a selfie, of course. He just replied with a message asking what my address is. I didn't reply at first, asking my girls what I should do next. But then I got a notification that the guy screenshotted my Snapchat profile. I immediately blocked him and remembered I had my location on the Snap map as public. The problem is the houses in my area are spaced out enough where he could easily identify which house I was in. I panicked, asking my girlfriends what to do. They tried to calm me down, assuring me there was no chance he'd come to my house.
Turn it on private then. Fam, I don't even use Snapchat and I'm not a retard. And I know what to do. I don't even have Snapchat, fam.
They did a good job because they made me realize how ridiculous him coming to my house sounded.
In these stories, hell no.
I was watching New Girl on Netflix. The doorbell suddenly rang.
Oh, God.
I paused the show, and I felt my heart jump into my throat. I was home alone, not expecting my parents or siblings, and it was past 10. I turned off my bedroom light and TV screen. I wanted total darkness to give the illusion no one was home. I suddenly got a notification that someone added me on Snap. The username was "It's me, add me back." I blocked the account immediately. 2 minutes later, another account added me on Snap. This one, the username was "I'm outside your house." I screenshotted that and sent it to my friends and family, now in tears. I blocked it as well. There was a long pause now. I hoped maybe he had given up. During that time, I was texting friends and family, but ignoring all their phone calls because I was so paranoid that I'd be heard from outside. Finally, I got another dreaded notification from Snap, saying someone added me. This time the username said, "I'm looking right at you." I turned to the window naturally. I wish I hadn't. I wish I just ran out of it.
There's a geese out there, any. Oh,
The room and called 911. But I looked and saw him looking into my room. This disgusting, smiling man. I'm sure my face turned completely ghostly white as I looked at him. I ran out of the entire house, screaming at the top of my lungs down the street. 2 neighbors came outside in response. I basically ran into one of their arms, crying for help. The neighbor called the police for me, but the man was not found in or around the house. I somehow had to gather the courage to go back into that house and stay there for the night. I locked myself in my parents' room since it's the only bedroom upstairs with a lock, and I prayed I'd be able to fall asleep. I lay awake for seemingly hours though. Eventually I knew for a fact I heard something outside the door, like tiny, soft footsteps causing ever so slight cracks in the room. I sat up and stared at the bottom of the door, dreading the lights outside turning on or someone trying to open the door. I grabbed my cell phone and dialed 911. I immediately said to the operator in a quiet whisper that someone was inside my house and I was alone. But maybe I didn't say it quietly enough, because footsteps on the other side of the door confirmed that I was right. I wasn't just hearing things. The footsteps walked away from the door quickly. I heard them go down the stairs. Eventually I heard the front storm door slam shut. The cops arrived shortly. The same cops had returned. This time they wouldn't allow me to sleep there the rest of the night. I called my friend Gianna, who was still awake, and she said I could come sleep over for the rest of the weekend. The police escorted me there after I locked up my house. I'm grateful I didn't fall asleep that night, as I wouldn't have heard those tiny footsteps outside my room. I might not have called the cops in time.
damn. Usually in these stories, they would usually, they'll have a certain amount of events, read to someone in the house, call the police, them either arrested or getting away, mostly getting away, and then story ends. But that was actually like a double take on that, to be honest. I know why when they do that. Yeah, I know it seems weird, but they don't usually do that. They usually have after they find someone in their house or whatever, they call the police and then you get away or either arrested, but mostly getting away, and then the story just ends. But it was actually like, are you dead? No. But yeah, I like that one. The next one.
I hardly use Snap. I find it to be an immature form of communication.
Exactly.
I only have one so I can receive snaps from friends and occasionally send people snaps while I'm on vacation somewhere or doing something fun. I do not view Snapchat as a viable replacement for simply texting someone. That being said, when this girl Kate that I hadn't heard from in months, who I was kind of into, one night randomly snapped me, my face lit up a bit. She snapped me a picture in a dark room, presumably her bedroom, saying, "What are you doing?" I replied with an awkward selfie, saying watching Friends, made more awkward with the obnoxiously bright flash
Watching
from my
Friends,
phone.
yeah.
Another reason I hate Snapchat, because I look terrible in selfies.
Same here,
Expecting her to run away after my selfie,
that's not the
she
selfie's
actually
problem.
snapped back.
It's my problem.
I could barely make out part of her face. It was 90% black wherever she was, with a hint of red glow. She said in the snap to come to her place. I was done with the stupid selfies, so I just messaged her back asking where. She sent an address. It was 10 minutes away. I was bored, so why not? I got in my Chevy and started following towards the address. It wasn't that far. I was there quicker than expected, but I'm also a speedy driver. The address was of a house at the edge of the same town I live in. Since I have her number, I just texted her, but with my car idling and her not answering right away, I decided to just call her. The call was answered, but she didn't say anything on the other end. In fact, all I heard was garbled background noise, likely because the phone was answered by accident. I said hello a few times, hoping maybe she'd hear me in her back pocket or wherever her phone might have been. I listened for a little while, and eventually I started hearing a man's voice in the background. I screamed hello 2 more times into the phone, and then I distinctly heard in a girl's scream, "Help me," before the call was hung up.
Hey, yo.
I didn't know what to make of all of that. I texted her one more time, "What's going on?" Minutes later, I got a text back saying, "Come in, I just opened the front door." I looked at the house, and sure enough, the front door was left open now. At the same time, I got another snap from Kate. I opened it immediately. It was a picture of her legs in a dark room. She was wearing ripped jeans, and it looked like she was sitting on the floor. Something wasn't right here. I wasn't going in that house. I called 911 and reported a possible kidnapping situation. In the meantime, while waiting for the cops, I texted back the number, saying 1 second I'm on a phone call, then I'll come right in. But there was no answer. In fact, the next time I looked at the front door of the house, it was closed now. I was worried that what I was imagining was coming true. The cop car eventually pulled up behind my car, and I pointed them at the house. Another cop car pulled up quickly across the street, and 2 more cops got out. A total of 4 cops were knocking at the front door. A man opened the door, and they identified that they received a reported kidnapping in the house. One of the police officers actually let himself into the house past the man. The other 2 followed, while one stood with me by the front porch. Not even 30 seconds later, one of the cops yelled at the other 2 to get him in cuffs, and then a girl's cries for help soon became apparent from the basement. I was in absolute shock when the girl I recognized as Kate was being escorted out of the house in tears. She was a wreck. She looked like she had just experienced a life-changing trauma. I can't even imagine. This wasn't even her house. This was apparently the man's house. But the girl's aunt didn't live too far, so she was brought there. Obviously, the man was brought to jail. I'm sure he's now in prison. That Kate girl really didn't seem to want to talk to me too much beyond thanking me for saving her life a bunch of times. I'm not mad about it, though. I understand. Experiencing whatever she went through in that basement is probably something no one wants to think about.
Jeez, man just saved her life. What a lad, fam. But yeah, I do understand. I also understand why she's not talking. Well, she's talking to him, but not much. But like that trauma can do weird things to people. So I understand, but
Greetings. My name is Terry Carnation of the podcast Dark Air with Terry Carnation.
what the frick? What the hell? What the hell just happened here? Did he get like a guest to do in this video? Oh, I forgot to read the description of the video. Yeah, sometimes he does this, like, he gets, like, you know, actual, like, creepypasta narrations, like, Corpse Husband and stuff like that, or Mr. Creepypasta on the channel sometimes, so, I don't know who this guy is, though.
Reading a story for the aptly named Mr. Nightmare. I am an 18-year-old guy and a freshman in college. I go to school in my hometown so that, for my first year, I can live with my parents and save money on student housing. I go to Montana State University in Billings, the state's largest city.
I'm not comfortable
And no, we don't ride
because the
horses
cats
to
you
school.
are pressed up
We
against
have
me.
cars. In school, I still knew and hung out with most of my high school friends that decided to stay in town for school as well.
Yo,
But
Bill,
in my
move.
calculus
I need to
class,
give him the
I didn't
pillow.
know anyone. I am pretty outgoing and can easily start a conversation with a stranger, but I strangely found it hard to make friends in that class. Eventually, I just gave up and went to class to learn rather than make friends. About 2 weeks into school, this guy I hadn't seen in class before started to sit near me. He would always come in around 10 minutes late and would sit as close to me as possible. It weirded me out, so I would sit as far from the door as possible to see if he was actually trying to sit near me. I observed that he would enter class late and walk past at least 10 open chairs just to sit beside, in front of, or behind me. He had this creepy vibe. His hair was always messed up and greasier than a McDonald's burger. His clothes were
No,
ripped up
don't
and
get
looked
closer to me, man.
and his hands were always
Oh yeah, I called him Meow Meow for I don't know. I called my cat Meow for Meow Meow for some reason. It's just a nickname that we call him. We have a couple of nicknames for him, like Rat, because he acts like one.
black with dirt. I'm a neat freak.
Yeah, I
and
won't talk
always
about my
keep
cat though,
myself
Dan.
and my things clean and organized. So just looking at him repulsed me a little bit. He also looked way older than the rest of the class, almost like he was 40. He started to fall behind in class since he never took notes, and he started asking me for help. Even though he looked creepy and gross, he seemed very nice and shy. I felt bad for him and would explain problems to him when he asked me to, but tried to keep it casual and not be overly nice. One day, he asked me for my Snapchat so that he could get help when we weren't in class, since Calc was only a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class. After hesitation, I gave him my username. Strangely, he wrote it on his arm in huge letters with a king-sized Sharpie. After class, I was getting in my car to go home and saw that he had already added me and Snapchatted me. I groaned and regretted giving him my username. I got in my car and drove the 20 minutes home. By the time I arrived, I had forgotten about it and went about my day. I should mention now, a girl's name added me on Snapchat on this day too, so I added her back, even though I didn't know who it was. Later that night, I got another Snapchat from him. I opened it. The first one from earlier that day was of his arm with my username on it. The caption had a ton of blushing faces on it, more than I could care to count. The second was a shirtless picture of him in a bathroom mirror, but it looked like a gas station bathroom. It said, "The jeans you wore today were so tight around you, and I couldn't stop staring." I was immediately weirded out and considered blocking him. I thought better of it, though, and wanted to avoid an awkward situation in the next class we had together. I didn't reply to him and went about my night. I had a few friends over and left my phone sitting on the couch, and one of my friends picked it up and said, "Dude, who's this Jefferson guy? He sent you like 20 snaps." I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my notifications. I clicked on one, and it brought me to the chat section of Snapchat. The messages started off with him asking why I never replied, and got increasingly more angry and aggressive as they went down. Then a picture popped up, and I opened it. It was of my front door, and it read, "Come out right now," in all caps, with about 100 exclamation points. I suddenly remembered I had my location on for Snap Maps, and he had tracked me to my house. I immediately screenshotted the picture and the messages. One of my friends recommended calling the police, but I wasn't worried since I didn't think he could get in. Flash forward 2 weeks, and I hadn't seen the guy since. One night I was watching people's stories and came across Jefferson again. I was horrified because I thought I blocked him. I looked at the username and saw that it was the username that I thought was a girl adding me all that time ago. He had made a fake Snapchat, knowing I would probably end up blocking him. His story was even creepier. It was a picture of me walking with my friends in a parking lot earlier that day. I was pissed now. I messaged him and asked why he wouldn't just leave me alone, and why he couldn't realize I didn't want to be his friend. He only replied with more pictures of me taken over the last couple of weeks. Me walking, me driving, me at the movies with my friends, me at a restaurant downtown with a girl I liked. I was so completely creeped out that I blocked him again. I wish I had saved the pictures. But after I press charges for stalking, I imagine the photos will be subpoenaed for evidence. I have since turned off my location for Snapchat, and I only add back people that I know.
Good lad.
Thank you, Mr. Nightmare, for that nightmarish story. Thank you, Tristan, for that indelible nightmare of a story that you've shared with us. Oh, blood-curdling. Now, if I only knew what Snapchat was. I don't know what that is. Is it a device? I'm not sure. But I can only imagine. One can only imagine. And frankly, I'm most surprised by the fact that someone in Montana is studying calculus. I didn't know they had universities in Montana, let alone courses like calculus. I bet they ride horses to class instead of cars.
Tristan.
Stay safe out there, buddy. Stay safe, Tristan, and only add people you know to your chapsnats. Only add friends and not creepy dudes. Full confession, that was me, but I am, however, a little older than 40. So, it was me, Tristan. It was me. This is Terry Carnation. I host the podcast Dark Air with Terry Carnation. New episodes out every Thursday. Follow me on my misadventures as I host a paranormal radio call-in show featuring, well, me, Terry Carnation. Thank you, Mr. Nightmare. Thank you, Tristan. Thank you, listeners everywhere. Remain open to all possibilities. I couldn't resist doing an evil laugh. I love doing evil laughs. Here's another one. All right, that's enough.
What was that? I did not get what was just that then, but yeah, he actually had a good narration, to be fair. Right, parents next. I can't remember this one because I think
Oh my gosh, it's totally not my shade.
Really taking.
Fam.
It just feels so.
Yeah, sure. There you go. Because I think this was like, he did a double, fun fact, he actually did a double upload when this video came out. He did one, I think he did an Uber/Lyft video, like an Uber, like, taxi, I think it's like taxi, all the stories. I don't know if Uber is taxi in America. What? I don't really know, I'm not going to Google it now, I'll do it afterwards, but yeah, this one's next. He did upload this one as well, so double upload Family Lamp. And he's not done that since, but yeah.
I'm a single mother of 2. My ex-husband and I take turns watching the kids month to month. My son Luke is 15 and my daughter Melissa is 10. This happened just a few months ago. I did some late-night grocery shopping after work. Luke had texted me earlier that he was going out with his friends. It was a Friday night. I wasn't thrilled with him leaving Melissa alone, but 10 is the age a lot of parents are more comfortable leaving their kids alone, and he knows I can't expect him to babysit her anymore. I got back to the house around 9 o'clock at night. I had to make 3 or 4 trips from the car to the house because of the amount of groceries I bought. I always overdo it with the groceries on the months I get to watch the kids. And then on the months alone, I'm the complete opposite. When I finally finished putting all the groceries in the fridge and pantry, I went upstairs to greet Melissa. I heard the shower running in the bathroom, so I went back downstairs to lay down in the living room and put on my show on Netflix. I was halfway through an episode, and I still hadn't heard Melissa leave the bathroom upstairs. Long hot showers aren't free, and I never condone my kids wasting water. I went up there to knock on the door and tell her to get out of the shower soon. I went back downstairs to resume my show.
It's like my house.
Only for about 5 minutes, though. Melissa was still in the shower, so I went back up there again and knocked louder. This time I waited for her to acknowledge me, but when she didn't, I continued to knock louder and yell her name angrily. It took me a little bit to notice through the bottom crack of the door that the light was off in the bathroom. I tried the doorknob, but the door was locked. The locks on my doors inside the house are easily unlocked with a fingernail, though, so I had to force my way in, now growing concerned. As the door opened, I yelled into the room at my daughter, at that moment feeling more furious than anything. I flicked the light switch up and went over to the tub. I yanked the curtain half open, honestly not knowing what to expect, but not in my worst nightmare would I have expected to find some 50-something-year-old withered-looking woman laying flat in the bathtub with the shower spraying water onto her. I screamed so loud and long until I lost the ability to scream for a few seconds. I had my back pressed up to the mirror. Everything on the counter had fallen to the ground. I felt an unexplainable sense of shock and horror. The woman stood up in the tub, looking at me, her hair and clothes obviously drenched. I slammed the bathroom door shut and screamed Melissa's name. I checked her room first thing, and I found her hiding under the covers. I grabbed her and tugged her out of the room. As we passed the bathroom door towards the stairs, that woman was standing in the doorway of the bathroom. Everything about her looked like a zombie. Her eyes, her movement. I made sure to grab my cell phone before locking the 2 of us in the spare room in the basement. I called the police. As I waited for the police to come, Melissa told me she thought it was me who came into the house. But when she saw some random, scary-looking woman walking up the stairs, she ran to her room to hide. Luke left the front door unlocked when he left. The police showed up in a timely manner. I talked to the police and told them exactly
That guy, the brother's gonna get his ass beaten.
what Melissa told me. I described the woman's appearance, noting she was also soaked, and because of that I couldn't give a good description of her hair besides long and gray.
I recognise this. I don't know if I've watched this in previous streams. I can't tell. I feel like I have, but I also might have not. But even if I haven't, I'm watching it now anyway.
This was all after making sure the woman was no longer in the house. Not under a bed, not in a closet, not behind a shower curtain. She simply left the house as easily as she entered. It's likely she was drugged out of her mind. I'd never seen someone who looked like they were literally lacking consciousness yet still walking. I don't even know if I would have been able to press any charges on her if she was found, which she wasn't. And don't you worry, I properly scolded and reprimanded Luke. Always remember to lock your doors.
Stupid Luke. Stupid tint. I nearly called him a... Yeah, I'm not going to say that because I get, demonetized.
This
But I
was
don't
over
know if I'm
15
monetized
years
anyway.
ago. We once went to this family resort in New York State. We took our 2 kids who were 4 and 6 at the time. This focuses on our 6-year-old Michael Jr. We were on vacation around Easter time, so the resort had a bunch of fun little festivities set up for the kids, like Easter egg hunts, Easter decorations during bingo, and someone walking around in a big Easter bunny costume. While we were in the dining hall one evening, the Easter bunny was walking around giving kids high fives. When he came over to our table, 4-year-old Peter hid under the table crying, but Michael Jr. gave him the high five and wasn't afraid at all. The guy in the bunny suit walked away quickly, probably to get our son to stop crying. The next day there was an Easter egg hunt, which was in one of the fields by the kids' center of the resort. I watched the kids scrambling to collect eggs while my husband Mike was elsewhere. I'm not really sure what he was doing. The Easter bunny guy was walking around the field interacting with the kids. I noticed he knew to avoid Peter. Peter came running to me when the Easter bunny got near to him. He would do the same thing with Santa around the holidays. The guy in the bunny suit was interacting with Michael a lot. I found it kind of cute. I just didn't want Peter around him so that he wouldn't start crying again. So I brought him to the other side of the play area for a little while. When it looked like the Easter bunny was gone, I walked him back to where Michael Jr. was last, but I couldn't see him. I started calling his name. Then another parent came up to me and asked if I was looking for a boy wearing a red sweater. I said yes, and she told me the guy in the Easter bunny costume walked him out of the field area in the direction of the parking lots. She told me this in a slightly concerned-sounding tone.
Oh my god.
I picked up Peter and ran in the direction that the woman pointed. I ran faster than I ever could, while holding my son on top of it. Motherly instincts clearly kicking in, giving me an adrenaline boost. I saw the man in the Easter bunny costume holding my child's hand, approaching a black car. I screamed at the top of my lungs at him to get away from my son. Then I screamed Michael's name. They both turned to look at us, and the man let go of my son's hand. Michael ran over to me, not realizing at all the danger he was just in. The man in the costume said to me that he was trying to find his mom since he looked lost, but that was total BS. He was about to get in his car with my 6-year-old son. I tried to yank the mask off of him, but he shoved me and yelled at me to piss off. Then he got in his car and drove away. I tried to remember his plate number, but he was gone too quickly. I called my husband on my old archaic cell phone, and I brought my kids to the front desk of the resort to meet him there. They said the man in the Easter bunny costume didn't work there. I was livid, yelling at the front desk workers the whole time, who were apparently aware of the man, yet didn't stop him or question him. We threatened to sue the entire place. They ended up refunding us for our entire stay, which we gladly accepted. But I was mere seconds away from losing my kid forever.
That was close. Sorry guys, adverts.
What is a person's knowledge and experience actually worth?
I don't know, I don't
20K
have
a
any
year?
knowledge, leave me alone. That was actually intense. Because that woman was like seconds away from losing her child for good. Damn.
We adopted our son Charlie at the age of 2. He's aware that he was adopted. We were honest with him about that ever since he started to learn to speak. He's now 7 years old. We don't have any children of our own because my wife can't have kids. Somewhat recently, my wife and I started noticing very strange behavior with Charlie. And what motivated me to actually sit down and write this was something my wife and I still can't explain. There's an upstairs toy room for Charlie since there's 2 extra bedrooms in our house. He has a big toy closet in there, and the whole room has a bunch of toys like a Lego table, action figures, and such. For the duration of about a month, At different times, we'd hear Charlie talking to himself. Not like role-playing talking in his play. We'd overhear him speaking as if he were talking to another person in the room. The first time this happened, my wife wasn't home, but as I passed his playroom, I overheard him talking as if he had a friend in there. And I swear to God, I actually walked in just to make sure he didn't actually have a friend in there. When I walked in, I saw him sitting at his Lego table with a couple of his WWE action figures on top of it. But he wasn't currently playing with any of them. He was just sitting there, blankly staring at me. I asked, "Who are you talking to?" He shrugged his shoulders. As weird as it was, I had to assume he was just playing. The next time something strange happened, it was a lot worse. This time my wife was at least home to witness it with me. We were in the kitchen, Charlie was in the backyard playing. We heard him laughing and talking suddenly, so my wife went to look out the window to see what he was doing. Then she called me over to look as well. What we saw was Charlie talking to thin air, as if he were talking to a person. It resembled him trying to show someone who wasn't there how to use the plastic sword in his hand. I expressed to my wife my concern. She said he may just have an imaginary friend. I told her I didn't know how I felt about that. She seemed to feel it was completely normal. Fast forward to like the third or fourth instance. It was 9 o'clock on a school night, approaching Charlie's bedtime. He was in his playroom still. I was trying to be lenient with the bedtime and let him play for a few more minutes. I heard Charlie laughing and talking to his imaginary friend again. I curiously had to take a peek into the room. As I opened Charlie's door, I heard his closet door shut. I looked at Charlie, standing up in the dead center of the room, with his toys scattered around him. I asked him who's in the closet, and something on the inside of it fell. It sounded like a big plastic toy. I asked one more time who's in the closet in a yell. He said George. I swung the door open, expecting one of his little friends in there. Maybe my wife let him have a playdate or sleepover without telling me. But the closet was empty besides his toys.
Hey?
I picked Charlie up against his will and brought him to his room. I told him he was going to bed. Then I told my wife about the closet door closing on its own, and then the toy inside falling on its own. She thought I was messing with her at first, but then she saw I was serious. That night, I woke up to sounds from down the hall in Charlie's playroom. We sleep with the door open. I woke my wife and told her to follow me quietly. We tiptoed to the toy room. Charlie wasn't in there, but a distinct, loud clicking sound was coming from inside the toy closet. I opened it, showing bravery for my wife. As I did, the clicking stopped. We dug for any kind of electric toys that may have made that clicking sound. Nothing, though. I think that was the night I became a believer in the paranormal. The next morning, I woke to my wife's scream. She was holding our wedding photo. It was cracked right down the middle, not just the picture in the glass, but the frame too. It was cracked perfectly down the middle, separating the two of us. We took Charlie and stayed with my mom for a week. Then, after a week, my wife and I returned to the house. We listed the house for sale, and after a few days of normalcy, we brought Charlie back to the house. But we moved out a month later.
God damn. Right, paranormal. No, not paranormal. What about this? Lockdown. I think I've watched this already, but I can't remember. I actually can't remember. I'll watch like 1 or 2 more videos and then I'll end off this video. But don't worry, I will do more of these in the future. I will do more reaction of this soon anyway.
I work at a middle school as an 8th grade math teacher. Some of you may assume that means I'm like 38 or something, but I'm actually only 26. I was hired young. I'm not saying I'm immature or anything, just that if I was 10 or 20 years older, I may have handled things differently. Of course, this happened during a period that I was teaching a class. The math wing in our school is closest to the lobby. I remember it like it was yesterday, down to the equation I was writing on the board, and the lockdown alarm suddenly sounded. It wasn't a drill. All faculty and students are taught which alarms mean what, and this was the alarm that meant go into lockdown for real, not a drill. I hurried to the door to lock it. Each door in the building has a big glass panel in it though, so the doors have little blinds that you could pull down to cover this. Even though we're supposed to pull down the blinds during lockdowns, we're also supposed to instruct students to hide in one corner of the room with the lights off. As I turned off the lights in the classroom, I told the students to go hide in the corner of the room where we would be least visible and audible from the door. I saw the lights in the hallways dim to just the backup lights, something I'd never seen before till that point. I I was slightly worried because I knew this had to be serious. And like I said, the math wing is right by the lobby. My classroom is one of the first classrooms you pass as you're going through one of the 2 hallways that veer from the lobby. I was curious,
I'm not
so using
comfortable
the
where I
classroom
am now.
phone, I called the front office. They didn't pick up after 4 rings, so I hung up. I wasn't endangering anyone to my knowledge, because the front office is behind 2 doors and the phone wouldn't be heard from the lobby. But still, them not picking up was concerning. There was suddenly a knocking on the door, a frantic, panicked knocking, accompanied with someone on the other side of the door begging to be let in. It wasn't a student, the voice was way too deep. It sounded to me like a guy in his early 20s, if I had to guess. I went to the door quietly and saw the person's shadow on the other side of the blind. He started saying he could see me through the blind and knew I could hear him. He kept saying let me in this scared-sounding, kind of whimpery voice. I looked to my students. Some of them had scared, confused looks on their faces. I signaled for them to keep quiet. Then I asked through the door, "Who's there? What's your name?" He said his name was Cody and that he was a student and needed to get into the classroom because he felt unsafe in the halls. When he told me this, I noticed he seemed to be trying to talk in a slightly higher pitch. I wasn't falling for it. There was no way that voice belonged to a middle schooler. I ignored him and went back to the corner by the students. The guy on the other side of the door started knocking harder now, fiddling with the doorknob and then kind of thrashing at the door, all while still saying, "Help, let me in." I did my best to keep my students from screaming or freaking out. The guy eventually gave up and the noises stopped. We stayed in lockdown for half an hour before an announcement was made that police had searched the building and it was safe. So later on, faculty was given more details, and apparently some 20-something-year-old guy with long hair down to his shoulders was walking around the school with a small handgun. Whether it was a real gun or not remains unknown, but the guy was caught on camera leaving the building through a back exit, and he was found by police 2 hours later, not holding the gun. I think I could have handled the situation a little better. For example, not even answering the guy when he was at the door, but I was so nervous that I really wasn't thinking logically. It's scary to think about what might have transpired if I opened the door for him.
Not so sure we have to do next. I watched 3 to 72 scary stories and then I went off the video.
This was back in my university
obviously this
days,
one as
not
well.
too long ago. I was in between classes with an hour-long gap. I had to go to the bathroom, but I didn't like using the bathrooms that most other people use. There were a couple restrooms on campus that were never really used. For example, the Activity Center building's bathroom. Our school's Activity Center was usually a ghost town during early day hours. And it was next to the building where I'd be having my next class, so it wasn't like it was far away. Inside the lobby of the Activity Center, some guy was sitting on a desk looking down at his phone. He looked up at me as I passed and said good morning. I said it back and proceeded around the curved hallway to the restrooms. While I was in one of the stalls, the door to the restroom opened and a man asked if anyone's in here. Being that it was the women's restroom, I was a little weirded out by that. I didn't answer. The door to the restroom closed, but I heard footsteps come up to my stall and stop. There was a light tap on the stall door with one of his fingers, I presume. Then, in that ever so tiny crack in the door, I saw the man pressing his face up through it. I saw
What the
his
frick?
eye looking in for a second. I gasped and said, "Someone's in here." He replied back asking why I didn't answer him, then told me this building and all nearby buildings are going into lockdown because of an apparent student who was sighted with a weapon. I didn't understand why he was in the women's bathroom with me, though. I left the stall to be face-to-face with him, and it was that guy that was sitting on the desk before. I was guessing he was the front desk worker or whatever for this building. He had to be trustworthy. He showed me a text on his phone from a random number, and it was a warning from the university to stay inside whatever building and classrooms you're in and to lock all the doors due to a potentially armed individual on campus. I found that alarming, so I felt comfortable with him going to blockade the bathroom door with a garbage bin. After he did that, though, the two of us just stood in the bathroom together, awkwardly. Like, I was trying to ask him for more details about the potentially armed person on campus. He said he had no other information on it, though. Something about the way he was looking at me relentlessly, like no social cues or when to stop staring at me. I felt uneasy. I pulled out my phone to create a buffer, and as I was on my phone, I thought to just look for a similar text from the school that he showed me, but I didn't get any text from the university. I went to the school's website, which would often have news and alerts. It didn't have anything about it, though. I asked this man's name, and he said his name was Eli, that he worked in the building. Now that I thought about it, though, his outfit consisted of light blue bootcut jeans with brown boots and a gray hoodie. He looked, if anything, like a maintenance worker. Instead of trying to continue the conversation with him, I was on my phone texting friends, any friends who I knew were on campus at the moment, asking if they heard anything about this armed person. I had 2 friends text back saying no, class was in session like normal. I looked up at the man, who was now even closer to me. Time stopped moving in that instant. He looked at the door, then whispered to me that he thought he heard something, that we should make a move to one of the stalls and hide. I froze, both physically and mentally. He started to walk up to me with his arms slightly extended out to nudge me into one of the stalls with him. At this point, the only thing I could do was scream, as loud as I could. I caught him off guard, and I think he went into full-on panic mode because he looked around the room and then hurried to move the trash bin away from the door and storm out of the bathroom. I proceeded to leave the bathroom a few seconds after him, running to the nearest exit. From there, I called my mom to cry to her about it. She actually called campus police for me and then drove to the school to meet me, and that's when I told campus police about the man, with my mom there to support me. A day later, I received a call from campus police, and they said they reviewed the footage caught in the building and could confirm that man did not work at the school and that they would do their best to find out who he was. I never received any future updates.
No, of course you didn't. I hate when they do that. I hate when these stories have... Most of these stories are basically the same thing happens, but they never get caught. Fam! Oh god, it annoys me, it does.
It was 9th period, the end of the school day, senior year of high school. 9th period was one of my off periods, so my school
Actually, I'll go to the 2-hour mark.
days would be a little shorter. A couple of my friends also had their schedules set up that way. Ryan and Scott. Our third friend Tyler had off 9th period every other day.
Mark, maybe.
This was one of the days he didn't have off. But since it was Friday and a nice day out, we were all texting each other, making plans to hit the beach. Tyler was talking about sneaking out of gym early to come with us, so we were waiting in the hallway by the gym. This hall was in the far corner of the school. The only people passing were students going to gym class. Tyler texted us that he was just going to wait till the gym teacher took attendance, then sneak back to the locker room and meet us in the hall. We waited there for a decent minute. It was taking a while for some reason. There's a set of exit doors at the end of the gym hall we were standing in. It wasn't supposed to be used as an entrance, yet here came some guy through the doors. Even though it was a really nice day out, this guy came through the 2 doors in the hall wearing black sweatpants and a black zipper-up hoodie with the hood over his head. He was also wearing a black backpack. We went silent as he walked past us, making a point of looking at all 3 of us with this dagger of a stare. Ryan stepped up and said, "What, dude? Fuck off." And the guy stopped in his tracks and turned to face Ryan and asked him if he's got a problem. Scott and I stepped in and just said forget it over and over until the guy turned and kept walking. We all agreed that guy seemed extremely sketchy. He looked like he could have been a student, but none of us recognized him. He had a little facial hair, but it was kind of patchy though. A few minutes later, we texted him asking him to hurry up, and he texted back he couldn't sneak out just yet since we're in lockdown. This was a shock to us because we weren't aware of this. He said the gym teachers announced it and everyone was hiding in the locker rooms. We also just realized the door separating the gym hallway from the actual locker room hallway were closed.
My sofa armrest to the cat, and I'm literally got no room. That's why, if you can hear I'm moving in the background, that's just me trying to get comfortable.
And locked. We immediately linked it to that creepy looking dude dressed in all black who just walked past us. The reality hit us so much harder when there were these popping sounds from down one of the hallways. At first they sounded like maybe a teacher slamming books on a desk as if to wake a student up or something. But we quickly put 2 and 2 together and realized they were gunshots. The sounds of students screaming quickly followed. Next thing we knew, we saw that guy in the black appear down the hall, and he was running full speed towards us. The 3 of us ran out the 2 doors that the guy entered from, and all the way to the woods next to the school. In that moment, I felt the curtains of life slowly closing, and the thought of death becoming a reality. I looked back twice as we ran, and saw that guy was chasing us, but he was kind of far away. He screamed stuff at us, most of it inaudible, but I did make out him saying, "I'm gonna kill you, Finn." We made it to the woods by hopping the fence that surrounds the perimeter of the school, and when we had a nice shield of trees covering us from view, we stopped to catch our breath. We decided to wait it out, laying flat on the ground to avoid detection. We then heard footsteps nearby. It got louder and louder until I could see him running through the woods looking for us. He ran further away from us, not noticing us, and when he was out of sight, we all agreed to run for it back to the senior parking lot. Between the running and the shock of the near-death experience we just had, I don't know how I didn't vomit. We got to my car, and I drove all three of us to my house. Obviously, the beach idea was out the window now. It later blew up on social media in our high school class group chat that one of the new teachers was shot by the guy and was sent to the hospital in an ambulance.
Damn!
He survived, but everyone thought he was going to die considering he got shot twice. No one knows who that guy was or why he targeted that one specific teacher. I'm sure he went after us because Ryan antagonized him. He probably waited to come back for us, or Ryan specifically, because he didn't want to alert the whole school with a gunshot. Who knows though? But that wouldn't have really mattered anyway, because the school was already tipped off by a nearby house about him, because he was seen pissing on their property before going to the school. Not to mention the way he was dressed on an 80-degree day. I consider this a near-death experience, and I count my lucky stars I survived.
Damn! Damn. Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to go to the 2-hour mark, because why the hell not? Don't know if I'll, yeah, I will. Why not? 2-hour long video means video content. Of course, it saves me doing a video tomorrow.
Sweet
Well, I
and
might do
crunchy
one
bell
tomorrow.
peppers from Sainsbury's are now
I
price
might
matched
do
to
this again
Aldi.
tomorrow, maybe. Maybe, I don't know. Depends, really. Depends if I can be asked. If not tomorrow or Thursday. Don't worry, we're not. A Creed Pasta video will be coming out. Well, at least one. Like one will be coming out this week, but it'll be like sat in the weekend because I can't be bothered right now.
I live in a small, peaceful town. I don't live in a place where you have to worry about walking alone at night. I share a one-story house with my sister, but she's hardly ever home. She has another place in Florida that she spends most of her time. There's about 100 to 200 feet between each house on my block, and then there's some woods across the street. I have a daily routine. I get home from work, make dinner, shower, relax a little, then go for a run, come back and have a light snack, then go to bed. It was a work night like any other. I was going for my nightly run, and when I came back to my house, there was a random white van parked across the street. I took notice of it because hardly ever would random cars park on any of these streets. Our little neighborhood has very little through traffic. I looked at it as I walked backwards to my front door, and I could tell there was someone sitting inside of it, though I couldn't see anything regarding what they were doing. I don't know if the glass was tinted or if it was just because it was dark out. Later that night, I was hearing some weird sounds coming from outside. It was like a scraping sound. I looked out my window and called out, "Hello?" and it stopped. I had no idea what it could be, but my first guess was the neighbor doing something in his yard. I went back to whatever I was doing, and that was the night. The following day was a Friday, the last day in my work week. After work, I did proceed with my regular schedule. I went on my nightly run a little earlier tonight since it was Friday and I had plans with some friends. I got back from my run, imagining the van to be there again, but it wasn't this time. I went out with my friends to a comedy club, and I didn't get back until late. I let myself into the house and locked the door. It was a long night and I was feeling tired, so I hurried up with the getting ready for bed process. After turning off the bedside light in my room and laying down, that's when things were finally silent enough for me to pick up on some weird thumping and rustling sounds. I felt like they were coming from inside of the walls. It's only a 2-bedroom house, it's not big. I put my ear up to one of the walls, and indeed heard something going on in there. I knocked on the wall and the noises stopped. This was a cause for concern, as I assumed it was a rodent or a wild raccoon. I went out to the living room, and passing by the windows, I looked outside and saw that white van parked outside again. I
Seriously?
opened my front door and stepped out to the front stoop to look at the van. I didn't see anyone sitting in it this time. 2 nights in a row of this now, something was going on. I walked barefoot to the side of my house to look for possible holes in the walls for animals to crawl through. Then I came to the outside crawl space door. It was cracked open, and the lock was snapped off. I hadn't paid attention to this door in weeks. I pulled it open a little more, and without a phone or flashlight in my hands, all I could do was lean inside and squint my eyes in the pitch blackness of the crawl space. I heard the faintest little sounds of pebbles scraping against the concrete floor. At first, my naive mind was thinking it was an animal, so the sounds turned more aggressive and more closely resembled human footsteps marching to the crawlspace door. And then, just barely, I could see a person crouch walking towards me. I slammed the door and twisted the knob, but without a lock, it wouldn't do anything. I ran back inside my house and called the police. While on the phone, I instantly attributed the crawlspace door to the scraping sounds I heard the night before. The next time I went to the window while on the phone, the van in the street was gone. Police came and I showed them the crawlspace. We had to use flashlights as the crawlspace doesn't have any lights installed. We found something disturbing. In the left corner, there were cut marks in the roof of the crawlspace, as if the intruder was trying to saw his way into the house. The only info I could give them was the white van parked in front of the house. We don't have cameras, nor did I see what he or she even looked like. They never came back though. I'd imagine because I caught on to what was probably supposed to be a silent operation.
Naughty, you teasing me, naughty, no. Oh, bugger off.
My family has a summer home in Arapahoe National Forest of Colorado. It's a 7-hour drive from my home. I don't often go with my parents or siblings, if ever. I go alone for the purpose of hunting and detoxing. I've probably been up there a total of 40 times in my life. The last time I went was a few months ago, but I don't really like going alone anymore. Here's why. It was 2017. I just pulled my truck up the old dirt road onto the grass of the property. There's no real driveway.
Wait a second, you said it was a few months ago, and then you said in 2017. Maybe the story was made in 2017, but that didn't make sense to me.
Just park wherever on the grass, really. The house isn't huge. It's modest, but nice for a vacation home. I parked up next to the front deck. This was in the dead of summer, but the breeze there was still nice and cool. I let myself into the house using the keypad lock. We don't use physical keys in fear of losing or forgetting them. I was the first one there in quite some time, so I had to turn on the electricity and water heater. In the meantime, I unpacked and ate the lunch I brought with me. I also threw away any mouse and bug traps that were left out that caught mice and bugs. It's actually quite a problem in the house. After all of this was done, I started setting up my hunting gear, which my dad and I leave in a big back closet. By this point, the sun was on its way down. It was around 6 o'clock. A laughter from outside caught my attention. I marched from the kitchen to the living room to look out the big window that looked into the woods. I looked into the woods and I didn't see anyone, so I cranked the heavy window open and listened. The laughter belonged to multiple children, like a small group. This was our property though. That meant these kids were trespassing, probably up to no good. I went outside through the back door to the woods, trying to follow the laughter. I kept going deeper into the woods, and the laughter stayed the same distance away from me though. Eventually I gave up because it seemed like the kids were running away anyway. The next day, while posted up in the tower that my dad built for deer hunting in the woods, I heard the sound of those kids laughing again. Noting that meant they were once again on our property, I decided to call my dad and ask what to do. He told me to chase them off the property if I saw them, so I shot around into the air. I forfeited any game for the sole purpose of chasing the kids away, but it worked, of course. The sound of the laughing stopped right away. I knew now it would be pointless staying posted up in the tower, so I called it for the day and went back to the house. I wasn't feeling too well anyway. That night I slept with all the windows open to get some air circulating, maybe help me with my headache. Then it came back. The sounds of the children. At this crazy hour, it had to be past like 11 at this point. I climbed up the bed to look out the window. Of course, it was too dark out there. I had enough now, though. I grabbed my Winchester from the closet and a flashlight as well. I didn't have intentions of shooting kids, just scaring them off with a round or two. I went out the back door towards the woods again, where the laughter was coming from. The laughter was louder than any other time before now. Like it seemed like they were 20 meters away at most. I yelled in a strong, commanding voice to get off my land. I scanned the woods with my flashlight. It wasn't a very powerful one, though. Then every muscle in my body basically went limp, and the volume of the laughter went from 30 to 100 in a matter of half a second. Then something landed on the ground next to me. It was an old-looking speaker. The sounds of kids laughing was blasting through it.
Oh no.
I picked it up and threw it back in the woods, then aimed the light back in the woods. At one point, I'm still not sure of it though, but I thought I saw a person standing at the edge of my light. I aimed my Winchester into the air and fired, then yelled a threat like, "Come any closer, the next round goes through your skull." I then ran back inside the back door and locked it. I closed every curtain, I considered calling the sheriff's department, but all the way up here, any police call would take at least half an hour to an hour. I was better off fleeing altogether. As I packed my bag, I heard a smudge on the living room window. I waited a few minutes in an idle position before slightly moving the curtains, revealing something written in blood on the glass. I didn't take the time to read it. I finished packing my bag, took my gun, took a deep breath, and went outside. I locked the door with the code as quickly as possible, then ran for the car as if my life depended on it. I turned the car on and put it in drive before it had time to finish with those startup beeps. I spoke with my dad on the way home. He told me I was right to leave. Anything in the house wasn't worth my life. I stayed at a nearby motel that night. My dad came the next day. I met him at the house. Whatever was written on that window in blood was wiped completely off. The house wasn't broken into, and we couldn't find the speaker type thing that was thrown at me. We stayed a couple nights, then went home. I don't know who was out there or why they were targeting me. I really hope that blood was animal blood, though.
Damn. Something you don't really expect to happen while you're like, I don't know whether you was like a work cabin or something.
One Admiral multi-cover policy
Oh, for
can cover
God's
all your
sake.
family cars and
I hate
homes,
these adverts,
even
man.
at different addresses.
That's why I never put adverts on videos. I know it's for YouTubers to get the moolah, but I don't mind the moolah. I don't need the moolah just yet, fam.
I was home alone one weekend, house to myself. I had a couple friends over the first night, and I stayed up pretty late both nights. I was 14 at the time, just started high school, and my parents had just started trusting me enough to leave the house to myself. This was on a Saturday night. I was out with a couple friends pretty late. When we all decided to call it a night, I walked home by myself. Halfway through my walk home, I noticed the car seemed to be following me. So I started to jog home, and the car started flashing its lights. At this hour of the night, I could only assume potential danger, so I turned my jog into a full-fledged run. I ran all the way to my house and checked outside the windows. Moments later, the car from outside parked in front of the house and someone came out from the car. They started running up to my front door. I started panicking. The doorbell started to ring. They started pounding on the door aggressively.
Knock, knock.
I suddenly felt like my life was being threatened.
Yo.
I ran to my room, which is on the lower level of the house by the backyard. I tried to get my parents on the phone, but they wouldn't answer. They were definitely asleep. For a 14-year-old boy, I was scared to death. Now the intense knocking moved to my window instead of the front door.
Oh,
I screamed at them to go away, and they yelled something back, but it was muffled. I left my room to hide in my parents' room and call the police. I made a phone call explaining that I was followed home and someone was trying to break into my house. The banging started at my parents' bedroom window now, as if they somehow knew which room I was going to every time. I screamed, "Go away." The 911 dispatcher told me not to do that and to keep quiet and stay hidden. But the person banging on the glass started yelling through the closed window, and now I could hear more clearly what he was saying. He yelled there was a person in my house. Then he yelled someone followed me home and might be inside my house. Ignoring the 911 dispatcher, I went to the window and asked in a loud voice so he could hear me, "What are you talking about?" He yelled at me to call the police and stay locked inside of a room because someone followed me home and went to our backyard. I told the dispatcher exactly what the man yelled to me. She said don't trust him just yet and to stay in a locked room until the police would arrive at my front door. I didn't know whether the things the man was saying were true or not. Not until hearing footsteps outside my parents' bedroom near the living room. The footsteps clonked down the wooden floor of the bedroom hallway. I heard each door in the hall being opened until they got to my parents' bedroom door. The doorknob twisted, but since it was locked, obviously the door couldn't be pushed open. I hid in the closet as the person on the other side of the door started trying to most likely kick the door down, as all I heard were loud bangs. Eventually the bangs stopped. I imagine they gave up. I didn't hear footsteps walking away, but probably because I was in the closet. I was still on the line with the dispatcher. She told me police were outside, to which I suggested the police try entering through the back, as that was apparently the point of entry most likely. They were able to enter through the front door though, as apparently the intruder left through the front. The back door was left ajar after the intruder smashed the glass panel on the door, allowing him to reach in and unlock it. I met the police in the living room. The man who was outside banging on the windows was also there. He told this whole story that as I was walking home, he saw some older man crouching in bush after bush, following me in a manner that conveyed he meant harm. He followed me all the way to my house, as a matter of fact. That's why the guy in the car was following me, as well as flashing his lights. I called my mom, who picked up on the third try. I didn't want to call my dad because I was scared of how angry he'd be. I spoke with my mom on speakerphone, with the police listening and contributing reassuring words to my mom. The police dropped me off at a friend's house that night to sleep there, and my parents started driving home that night and got home early the next morning. A police officer parked outside our house for a few hours before driving off. Nothing was stolen at all to our knowledge, and if the intruder didn't break in to rob us, that means he really was just after me, and he came after me in my own house.
Damn! I did not. Yeah, I'm sorry I'm not really speaking much during this video, only because, like, it's like with my live streams, I don't want to talk much because obviously that's the point of the video. It's for you to watch this with me. Okay, so I'll watch one more video before I end this video, and it's the high school ones. I know I've watched this in my live stream I did not the live streams I've done this year, but the live stream last year. But I've not watched it since then. So yeah, this will be the last video of this video. Yeah, I will do more like in the next few days, do not worry about that.
I was a new student to Southern Lehigh High School in
Oh
Pennsylvania.
yeah, I remember this one.
Going into my junior year of high school, not knowing anyone was really rough. Everyone obviously had their friend group sorted out by then. The worst part was lunchtime, though. My school wouldn't let juniors leave for lunch, only seniors, so I had to eat in the cafeteria. I was dreading it because I knew I'd have no one to sit with, and I didn't want to force myself into a random table. When lunchtime finally came, however, I walked into the cafeteria with my tray of food looking for a place to sit. Every single table was taken. I didn't even have the option of sitting alone. But there was one table in the corner of the cafeteria with only 2 kids sitting at it. That was the least intimidating spot to sit, so I walked over and asked if I could sit there. They both looked at each other, and one of them said yeah. I noticed upon sitting down that the 2 were identical twins. They looked like they were partially of Hispanic heritage, but they didn't have accents. They honestly seemed alright. They introduced themselves as Antonio and Bruno, and they had a conversation with me. They invited me to hang out with them after school, and honestly I figured why not? I had to start off somewhere as far as making friends. I got their numbers, and after school I went home to drop off all my stuff.
I'm thirsty, I've not had a drink.
Shortly
I've
after
not
I
had a
got a
drink
text
since I
from
started
Bruno,
this video.
telling me he and his brother were planning on hanging out.
And we're an hour and
He
42
told me to
minutes
meet them
in.
around
Oh,
9 that
God.
night at the nearby cemetery that was
The
like a
first thing I do
10-minute
after
walk
stop
from my
recording, get a
house.
drink.
He said there was a cool hangout spot near there. Plus, the first day of school was on a Friday, so we had off the next day. I had nothing to do, so I said, yeah, I'm down. When the time came, Bruno texted me one more time asking if I was still coming. I said, yeah, I'm gonna leave in a few, and confirmed we were meeting on the road by the cemetery. He said, yeah, so I began my walk in the dark to the cemetery. The longer I walked, the more I thought about my whole move and being a new kid in high school, and thinking about the fact that I was literally walking to a cemetery at night to hang out with 2 kids I just met. But anyway, I got to the little road next to the cemetery and asked Bruno where they were. He started typing right away, and he said they were in the woods hanging by a small lake that they wanted to show me. Then he promptly sent his location. So I made my way into the woods, pushing branches out of my way, using my tiny phone flashlight as my only light. I started calling for Bruno and Antonio as I felt like I was close enough, according to the location he sent me at least. Suddenly I heard footsteps, so I stopped. Definitely footsteps approaching me, but they were very low and slow. I called out that they better not be trying to scare me. When they weren't answering me though, I decided this was stupid. I turned and started walking back towards the road. But those footsteps I mentioned earlier, they turned from quiet and slow to fast, and before I could even react, someone had their nails digging into my neck, effectively choking me. I heard a familiar voice screaming, "Grab him, grab him." I managed to break free from this sort of chokehold and sprinted towards the road. I know they followed me until the tree line by the road. I was faster than them, and I could run for miles. And that's what I did. I ran straight home and told my parents. They considered calling the cops, but I thought it would be better to get pictures of the nail marks on my neck and report it to the school the next day. That's what we did, and with the help of the text that I got from Bruno, I was able to get the two students expelled. My parents made me block both their numbers. I didn't exactly argue with that, though. My parents wanted me to confirm that these kids didn't know where we lived.
Not even
And I told them
comfortable.
simply, not as far as I
You
know.
you have the whole settee, right?
So anyway,
So basically, as I've mentioned many times throughout this video, I'm squished, basically. But we have the sofa I'm sitting on to record this. We have a big sofa. We have two I don't know what to call them, but we have quite a big sofa. So I don't know why you choose to sit next to me. I know I'm with you the most, Bill, but still, fine. Jill, bloody OG.
one night about a week later,
So as you've even
I
seen
woke
with me
up to
this
my
morning,
room
to be honest, I thought
feeling
you would
really
have
cold.
gone out by
I
now.
heard the sound of wind blowing
Oh,
into my
crap,
room,
I need to feed
and
you
I
as
looked
well.
at the window to see it was slid completely
God damn
open.
it.
I wondered if my mom came in to open it, but that would make absolutely no sense. It was like 50 degrees out that night. I walked over to it and looked down below. A few feet below my bedroom window, there's a part of the exterior of my house that comes outward, creating a sort of ledge underneath my window that my father always told me to jump onto in case of a fire. I shut my window and walked over to my parents' bedroom. I gently knocked and opened the door, and my mom groggily asked what. I had to ask her if she opened my window. She sat up saying, "No, why?" I told her in a louder, more concerned voice now that my window was opened all the way by somebody. She started shaking my dad to wake him up and go check my room with me. But when he woke up, he told me to grow up and go back to sleep.
Yeah.
I left my parents' door open as I walked back down the hall to my room. Then, I picked up on something that I'm surprised I picked up on. My door. It seemed to be half shut now, as opposed to completely open when I left. I pushed the door open just a little bit so I could get a look through the crack and see if, someone was behind the door. Even though I had the thought of the possibility, I never could have actually expected to see it. There was someone hiding behind my door.
Damn.
I screamed for my dad like a little girl. I screamed so loud I'm sure it could be heard 3 doors down. Then my door suddenly slammed shut, just as my dad came rushing out of his room over to me. I screamed, "There's people in my room," so he barged into the
There's
room and
Jesus in
turned the
my
light
room.
on. At that moment, we saw the leg of a person jumping out my window. My dad ran to the window, then downstairs and out the front door to attempt to chase them down. But he came back a few minutes later out of breath, saying he didn't see anyone. Full of energy and fear, I swore it had to be those twins that I got expelled. My dad called the police, and I had to talk to them when they arrived, explaining the whole story back to the incident in the woods. My father backed up my story, but without proof of who entered, they said there wasn't anything they could do. They merely ordered us to lock the doors and consider installing cameras outside. As positive I am that it was either one of or both of those twins in my room, after getting through a solid couple months of sleeping in fear, nothing to this nature ever happened again. Looking back now, I don't know why I was so willing to meet these kids in the woods at night. I should have realized in the cafeteria that day that they looked like trouble, and I should have stayed away.
You think? That's like 7 minutes wrong. Jesus. Go away, annotations, you bugger.
Freshman year of high school, 2007. Gym class, last period. We had a substitute gym teacher on one of the stormiest days of the year. He was an older man, not a senior citizen, but gray, maybe 55 to 60. He took attendance, and when he passed me, he did a double take at me, which I found a bit uncomfortable. Not to float my own boat, but I always understood I looked older and really good for a freshman in high school. The sub told us to get into our volleyball teams, and he disappeared into the hall by the locker rooms for a while. 40 minutes went by and the period was over. It was time for us to get changed and go home. I got into the locker room, but for some reason, my locker wasn't opening. I tried my usual combination over and over and over. It wouldn't click open though. I had to go to the sub and let him know to ask for my combination again. I figured maybe the combo just slipped from my mind for some reason. The sub told me to give him a few minutes, and he'd get the list of locker combos. I waited outside the office, and out he finally came with a book in his hands, open to a specific page. He walked into the girls' locker room with me, which I didn't expect him to do. The locker room was basically empty now, with one girl finishing up changing. He walked over to my locker and tried the combination written down on the paper. It didn't work no matter how many times he tried it. Each time he tried it and failed, he would look at me and laugh. I would force myself to laugh along, but it started getting weird. He put his hand on my shoulder as he said, "We'll figure this out." He tried the combination again, with his hand still on my shoulder. When it didn't work again, I felt his hand slowly started inching down from my shoulder to my lower back. I pushed myself away and grabbed my bag, saying, "It's okay, I'm late for my bus."
Screw the bus.
He tried a combo in the locker one more time, and it opened. He smiled and walked away. I waited till I heard the locker room door shut. Then I proceeded to getting changed quickly, when suddenly the room went dark. I finished pulling up my pants and shut my locker in the dark. I threw on my backpack and started walking to the back exit of the locker room, which led outside. I feared that the sub would be waiting right by the door for me. I got predatory vibes from him.
So do I.
When I got to the end of that specific aisle of lockers I was in the intersection of two rows. I'd have to turn down left to get to the exit door, but still. Naturally, I had to look right to make sure that it was clear. There was a little light seeping in from one single rectangular window that sat under the ceiling. It was enough. Enough for me to see him peeking at me from around the wall of lockers. So that's when I ran for the exit door. He came over behind me saying, wait, it's not what it looks like.
What does it look
I
like
ran
then?
outside into the rain off the campus of the high school and walked the rest of the way home, giving me time to reflect on what happened. By the time I got home, soaking wet, it came to me that he most likely changed my locker combination somehow as a way of getting alone with me in the locker room. As for what he could have possibly been planning to do when he cut the lights, I never wanted to imagine. Honestly, I was too emotionally scared and quite frankly embarrassed to tell anyone about it, not even my parents or friends. It was something I just kept to myself all these years, because truthfully, I just don't feel comfortable telling people.
Exactly. Even I probably would have told at least one person. But, nah.
When I was in high school, I was in the band. At my school, band was basically an easy A. It was either that, orchestra, or chorus, so I went with band. Anyhow, my band teacher, Mr. Nicholson, had the grading system set up so that as long as you attended class and went to your weekly lessons, you got an A. Sadly, towards the end of one quarter, I was missing 2 lessons. Because of that, my grade was a B. I went to him after class to ask if I could make up the lessons, and even though he seemed reluctant, he said he would let me come in during a lunch period and practice in one of the downstairs storage rooms to get credit for a lesson. I was more than happy with that, because realistically, I would probably just play games on my phone anyway instead of actually practicing. I arrived to the music room during my lunch period the next day. So I took my saxophone and headed down the stairs outside the music room towards the basement area for the music department. It was always kind of creepy down there because absolutely no one besides the music teachers would go down there usually, and the lights were kind of shitty. I'd only been down there a couple times before that day. But anyway, I walked down the hallway, and on either side were a bunch of doors that led into small, maybe 7 by 7 feet rooms. All of these rooms were used for storing things like chairs, music stands, spare instruments, Christmas decorations, and whatever. I stepped into one of the rooms and shut the door. I set up my music on one of the stands in the room, just in case Mr. Nicholson were to come down to check on me. But really, I didn't plan on actually playing. I started playing games on my phone, and then flick. Darkness.
Uh-oh.
Like, as dark as it could get. Minus my phone screen. I looked over to the light switch to me, just instinctively, flicked it up and down a few times, but that did nothing. I stumbled as I got up from the seat to open the door, to more darkness. I held my phone out in front of me to light up this little hallway, even if it was just barely. I think I had like an iPhone 3 or something. Those old ones didn't have flashlights. But anyway, that little light from my phone was enough to see one of the doors open near the end of the hall. And I heard something being dragged in that room, like one of the big plastic containers. There was also manic breathing, followed by animal-like grunting. Then I saw a big plastic container being pushed out of that room into the hallway. As I saw this, I turned off my phone screen and went back into the room I was just in. I shut the door so quietly. I don't know what exactly I was thinking in that moment that I decided to hide. But I think the strange sounds I was hearing from this person, mixed with the random blackout, made me wary of staying in that hallway. Whoever that was blocking the stairs though. Of course, I got no reception down in that little basement area. All I felt comfortable doing was sitting in that room and waiting for the lights to hopefully turn back on. But the lights seemed like they were never going to turn back on. So I decided I would try and get back upstairs again. I quietly opened the door with my phone in front of me for light. Then I stepped into the hall. I inched up a little closer to the stairs, and I heard something again. I quickly crept into the next closest room with the door open and shut it. I still didn't know what I was hiding from. Could it have been a staff member or a janitor? At that point, the only reason I had of thinking it wasn't was because they only appeared down there after the lights turned off. I stood in that room in complete darkness, listening and waiting for another sound from outside. But you know how when you're in a room with someone, even if you don't necessarily hear them, you can kind of just sense their presence? That's suddenly the feeling I got standing in that pitch black room. I lifted my shaking hand up and pressed the home button on my phone to turn on the screen, just for half a second. That was enough to see someone standing in the corner of this little storage room, 3 feet away from me.
Whoa!
I pretended I didn't see anything, but it was too
Jesus.
late. Shh, is what I heard, breaking the silence. Then, a hand patted my shoulder twice and started squeezing it. I basically dove for the doorknob, struggling to find it at first, but pulling the door open when I did. The man in the room with me tried pushing the door shut after I opened it, but I was already out. I ran up the stairs and out the door to the main level of the music hall, where the lights were still on. I ran to Mr. Nicholson to tell him, out of breath. He called security to check the basement section of the music hall, but security came back upstairs and said besides a bunch of music equipment moved around, there wasn't anyone down there. The rest of the period, Mr. Nicholson canceled his flute lesson, and I sat there in the room with him and 5 flute players, explaining the whole story in detail. Without cameras in the music hall, there was no way of catching whoever went down there and killed the power for the basement. It seemed that he was trying to steal expensive music equipment. That, or God knows what else. The next day, I was called into the dean's office to give my story of what happened, and the rest is history.
Oh, damn! Oh, stupid annotation.
One night, my friends and I hatched a genius plan. We'd sneak into the high school basement through one of the windows that was broken and never fixed. The thing about this window, you'd have to hop a short metal gate surrounding an outside staircase leading to the basement. Not that it would effectively stop anyone, but it added that extra barrier that makes you feel like you were really doing something devious when you crossed over it. We made sure there weren't any security cars anywhere nearby and hopped the gate. Crawling in through the window proved difficult, considering we had to boost ourselves up, then crawl through an insanely skinny opening. But once we were in, we were in. We kind of dispersed from each other to explore different areas. One thing was for sure, the basement of the school was a mess, and anything but interesting. There was little light. One small white light was on in the far corner, and the exit sign light actually produced more light than you'd think. I was looking around when I saw one of my friends in front of me. He whispered, "Let's go upstairs." So I followed him upstairs and opened the door up to the main hallway of the school. Everything was dark. I always thought there were at least some lights left on in the school at night. But no, not a single light was on. And all that really stood out as far as the eye could see were the various exits.
I can't see anything apart from the shadowy figure, dude.
I followed my friend down the hall and remembered saying, "Dude, this is really creepy." And he replied back, "Shh." But I realized he was right. Who knew if somebody else could be in the building besides my friends and I? Little did I know just yet. I followed my friend to the bathroom, and he went into one of the stalls. I whispered, "Hurry up." I waited for a while. Then my phone started to ring. I picked up, and it was one of my friends, Chris. He asked, "Where the hell did you go?" I said, "I'm upstairs with either Roland or Brandon." He said, "What do you mean? They're with me." And right after, both Brendan and Roland said hi, apparently on speakerphone.
Oh, for
I
God's
stuttered the
sake.
word "I" and stopped, trying to think straight. Then, there was a laughing coming from in the stall.
The hell?
Not the laugh of any of my friends.
Sounds like
I looked up at the
crying.
stall. There was someone looking over it at me, probably standing on the toilet.
Ew.
I screamed "holy shit" over and over into the phone as I left the bathroom. Shortly after I was out, I heard the stall door slam shut. I tried to run back to the basement in the dark, but it wasn't too easy to find in the dark. Luckily, I managed to find it, so I started to scream their names as I ran down the stairs. I screamed "go, go" when they answered, and we one by one jumped off some kind of bucket onto the window ledge and crawled back outside. I was the first one out though, afraid that person from the bathroom was following. When we were all outside, I explained to them, out of breath, while also laughing now that I felt safe with all of them next to me. I guess we were loud or something though, because as we all just started looking around at the whole school building and all the classroom windows, in one of the downstairs windows was someone with their hands pressed up on the glass. You could only see maybe half their face. I said that's gotta be him, as Roland ushered us to get the hell out of there. We ran until we were off the premises of the school, and that was that. We came up with a lot of possible explanations, but none of them really made sense. Obviously, we never did anything like that again, though.
So yeah, that's the final story of this video. Oh, this was a fun video, to be fair. Even though I was squished. Thank you, but yeah, that was a fun video. I will definitely do more of this. The streams and videos. Like, I'll probably do one in it over the next few days. A creepypasta video will either be out either this weekend or next week. I don't want to really focus much on creepypastas at the moment because they do tire me out, and yeah, they do tire me out a lot, and I just want, you know, a break from them. But I've been doing creepypasta non-stop for nearly 2 weeks. Like, it's Tuesday when I'm recording this, as you can see from the bottom left-hand corner of the background. I think you can see it anyway. I don't really know how the PC recording on YouTube actually works on PC, but yeah, that's gonna be the end of this video here. Please like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you won't miss when the next video comes out. I want to say thank you to Billy for joining me. He's actually been there the whole 2 hours. He's been there since the video started, so I'm actually surprised about that, to be honest. Hello. He's having a bath now. So yeah, I want to say thank you to everyone for watching this video. I know it's been a long one, but I hope you did enjoy it as well. Hope you did enjoy my reaction. I'm sorry I didn't really talk about much throughout this video, just because, you know, I like to watch the video as well, but this video is about basically my reaction. So yeah, hope you have enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye bye.